Hey, this is Shaun with the Atlanta Tennis Podcast, powered by GoTennis. Check out our calendar of Metro Atlanta tennis events at letsgotennis.com. And right now on the podcast, we want to hear your story. So you got something interesting that happened on a tennis court with a coach, with a tennis match, anything that happens with a kid at a junior tournament. We want to hear the story. Go to letsgotennis.com/my story and tell us all about it. You will be entered into our monthly giveaways. You can do this once a month. Well, you can do it as often as you want, but you can do it once a month to be entered into our giveaways, and we'll have a big giveaway at the end of the year, and you might even actually be featured on the podcast if your story is entertaining enough, or if we just like it best. That's okay too. But today is 10 minutes of tennis with world-renowned tennis coach Justin Yeo, Australian in Puerto Rico. Justin, I'm getting pretty good at that.
I was going to say, I'm in Naples, Florida today.
You're in Naples. Okay, you're in country.
Yes, I'm on the mainland.
On the mainland. All right, well, welcome here. Naples is a nice place to be. And we today are going to talk about the non-dominant hand, the power of the non-dominant hand. So skipping ahead, hopefully we all understand dominant hand, non-dominant. So I'm a righty, so that is my dominant hand. I'm a lefty, this is my non-dominant hand. Interesting follow-up from a recent conversation about the dominant eye, not to be confused. So the non-dominant hand. Justin, you're going to tell me why there's power in it. So, okay, go.
Well, the power is from the importance of it. A lot of people don't utilize it well enough on ready stance, serve, volley, backswing. There's so many things that are so critical about the non-dominant hand. The change of grip. The non-dominant hand is such an important tool, which is where basically you can create power if you actually put the weight of the racket in your left hand every time you finish your swing. I mean, I see a lot of people with tight grips because they don't put the non-dominant hand holding the weight of the racket when you come back after you swing on recovery. So that can automatically generate a lot more power because your right hand's loose and your right arm's loose, and you can accelerate the racket head faster. So there's so many roles of the non-dominant hand, especially on the volley, keeping the racket head up, keeping it further out, flush backhand on the take back, trying to keep it, again, weight up here, loose here. On your backswing on your forehand, you bring the left arm around. We've seen, Alcaraz comes all the way around with both arms and then lets go. Seen that with Djokovic as well. So the non-dominant hand, not spoken about enough, especially also even in preparation on the forehand. There's like a counteract with face. If your left arm comes out, your bum comes out, so you get into athletic face. The non-dominant hand is a massive tool that I don't think gets talked about enough.
And that just pretty much answers my first question, because I had a simple first question is, this is more than just the two-handed backhand. So those of us with two-handed backhands talk about that non-dominant hand often. So that is the place where it's talked about. Now, it might also be talked about on the serve with the toss. But again, that's got its own job to do, and that's a little bit obvious. So what you're talking about is the less than obvious uses of that non-dominant hand for balance, for the take back on the one-handed backhand, because that was going to be that next question from me, which is, all right, well, what does this have to do beyond the serve and the two-handed backhand?
And then change of grip. A lot of people struggle with the change of grip, and the left hand is really your key factor. Just turn the grip fast and keep your right hand loose. You did hit an important point as the two-handed backhand. Two-handers are always going to have the challenge between which one holds the most tension, because obviously on the backswing, you want to make sure your left hand dominant on your backswing, on your backhand. But it just still shows the important role of how, the focus and training and technique and all these things that need to be around the non-dominant hand. And I mean, I guess a lot of the times we don't talk about it enough. A non-dominant hand on the ready stance we brought that up just a few weeks ago. Ready stance is just so critical that if the left hand is further enough out, you know, it's allowing you space, it's allowing the rotation to happen. If the elbows are in and we've got a lazy stance and the non-dominant hand is not helping at all, then that also can be a playing effect. On the volley, you've got your challenges there on a two-handed backhand player because they've got to come in and decide, am I going to do one hand or am I going to be a two-hander? You know, because honestly, on a volley, this is so much easier to hold the racket head up and be ready for preparation versus down here.
That sends me. I want to talk about those last two things you just mentioned, which is the ready stance. Where I remember when I first noticed the elbows out and the left hand on the side and the right hand on the side was Leighton Hewitt in the late 90s. And he had that just extreme elbows out because I think he was not really one of the first, but one of the obvious, that semi-Western forehand grip and then the two-handed backhand where you realize on the return of serve especially, you don't have as much time for a grip change. So you just put that left hand ready for a two-handed backhand. It's just ready to go at all times for the two-handed backhand, and you can actually turn the grip in your hand as you get prepared for that. But at the net, I don't know a lot of players, I'd say mostly the female players that have that two-handed backhand volley. I think that's the thing you just stick with as a kid. But in this case, you're talking about the left hand, or for me, the left hand, the non-dominant hand being on the throat almost as a balancing agent, less so than to be able to have it on the grip as though I'm going to use it at the net, right?
100%. 100%. Especially if you think about the balance of the racket, the weight in the middle is easier to hold the racket head up versus, you know, allowing it to tilt from the handle. So it's just it's 100%. Well, here's the thing. All my female players, every single one, the only way I can teach them how to slice properly is to teach them how to have a one-handed backhand position on the baseline so that they can learn how to slice. And if they need to drop it for a two-hander, they drop it in and let the left hand take over. But it always helps them set up for a sliced backhand return or a sliced backhand in the rally. And then it's an easy position that when they get to the net, they're still in the same position that they're happy with the left hand on the throat. It helps them keep it nice and relaxed on the forehand. There's no grip tension. I find the only challenge always was on return, but really at the end of the day, it's just a quick drop in and return, cock the wrist and off you go. So I don't know. That was one of my signatures with my junior tennis players is that I would try to set them up.
And we see more two-handed backhand returns on the female side on the return of serve. I think maybe because the two hands are there and it's easier. But again, it's going to be a coaching thing. It's going to be something that they learned when they were 13 to 16 in that range. Say, this is the thing. I was picking on Taylor Fritz the other day, thinking, man, if he only had a decent backhand slice, a defensive backhand slice on that side, and I'm kind of yelling at the television. And then all of a sudden he starts hitting that chip a little bit more in the same, within minutes of me saying it, I'm sure he heard me, but started chipping a little bit more. I think that's one thing that really adds some defense on that side. We see more on the men's side, of course, than the women's side. But that's, again, where that non-dominant hand, he's just so used to being long and being able to reach with those two hands the way Djokovic is flexible. And so we look at the weekend player. We look at that weekend player, the typical league player, the social player that says, okay, well, I could do kind of whatever I want. I'm not great at anything. But can I just use that non-dominant hand to find that spot? So I would say, as Justin's saying, go find your coach, talk to them about using that on that side, even if it's just balance. But we think about that non-dominant hand more than we would like to. Justin Yeo, I appreciate it. Let's follow up again because I think there's more conversation to have here when we can maybe dive into a little bit each of these where here's where the non-dominant hand is for balance on each of these spots and here's where it's actually used in the shot. You good with that?
Yeah, I mean, Ash Barty, number one player in the world, hurt a lot of female players with their slice backhand return. And it's because the left hand came up. So
There you
just a
go.
pretty obvious.
And you get to take credit for her because you're an Aussie, she's an Aussie. There you go. Justin
That's
Yeo, I appreciate it. This has been 10 Minutes of Tennis. We'll see you again next week. Thanks, mate.
okay, mate. See ya.